into the future. Is this something that eventually makes its way into every household, or like I'm thinking about like the sustainment and the maintenance of like who do you call when something like this goes down? And let's just say we're living 10 years into the future right now. What does that world look like as far as you can kind of
Yeah.
muster up?
Yes. The easy answer is yes. I do believe that in the future, wherever we generate heat for whatever reason in industrial or residential areas, that they will be generated through Bitcoin mining. Because it does not make sense anymore to generate heat with resistive heating, so electrical, um, because a miner, and maybe that's the most important thing we have to understand, if you put, let's say, 1,000 watts electrical energy into a computer, any computer, and miner specifically, 1,000 watts of heat come out of it. So the computer, the computing of it, does not consume energy. It does not use the energy and store it in the digital code. It uses the energy to run the electrons through the chips, and that generates resistive, and that is a resistive heat, and so it generates heat. So wherever you today generate anything through electricity, let's say your water kettle, like to heat water in the morning to make a tea or a coffee, a miner would use the exact same amount of electrical energy to generate the same amount of heat than your water kettle, or your electrical water heater, or your hot tub heater, your pool heater, anything. So because of that fact, it makes basically no sense anymore to put resistive heating elements into anything, and not because you should actually use a miner or a computer that also uses the energy for something, in our case, to mine. And the really cool thing about mining is you can turn them on and you will be immediately mining within seconds, and then you turn it off and you don't lose anything. Like, these miners upload their share that they've done multiple times a second. So if you turn one off, it's not that like you lost a video processing batch and now you have to start again or things like that. So you can turn them on and off immediately. So yes, I do believe that we're going to have in the future any type of heating system will be done through mining. What I also agree, though, is that this will take some time. But what I like to do, actually, I like to look into I go to YouTube and I look like old videos of like the first phones. Like, people had these massive bricks in their cars, and they had like these videos where somebody was on the phone while driving and making fun. Like, literally, it made fun of people that put car phones, that had car phones. It's like, this will never work. Why would we ever need this? This is so complex. Like, all the things that we're now saying about this, it's all there. But I believe this will be much, much, much easier, because people will learn how these things work. Like, nobody knew 20 years ago. Nobody really knew how to use a touchscreen. Now you have people that don't even know anymore what a regular keyboard is, like, because they're so used to type on mobile phones, or dial rotary telephones. Like, give any kid a dial rotary phone, they have no idea what to do with it anymore. So I think people will learn about all these things anyway. And of course, it needs a lot of engineering to make all of this much, much simpler. Like, my system today, yes, there's exposed things and stuff like that, but that's what I'm working on also, to actually make it nicer looking, to package it in nice systems that plumbers, electricians, HVAC people also understand all of these things. So they could take a system that I'm building, install it in somebody's house, and then you can call these people on Sunday morning. If you don't have hot water, you could call a plumber. They could come out and they know how this system works. But that's not something that is going to happen from one day to the other. It's probably also not going to happen in a year. That's going to be many, many years. But yeah, if you look at other technologies, how they were adopted by humans, like smartphones, the internet, electricity itself, it will take time, but it's going to happen because it just makes sense. And specifically also about one of the things that I don't see a lot of people talking in the Bitcoin community today is that we generate a lot of waste with these miners. Like, every year, new miners are coming out, and these big mining systems, or mining companies, they always want the newest model because they have to, because only then they're profitable. Because they only produce Bitcoin. Like, they don't reuse the heat for anything else. The first one are sort of starting now. They're talking to miners like me to actually try to learn about this. So it's interesting that you talk to like CEOs of big mining companies and you explain them how your system actually works, because they realize that they could make even more money with reusing the heat. But today, they just purely mine for Bitcoin. They don't use anything else. So they always need to use the newest models. And the older models, they may be still used, but the third generation of them, so 2 generations before, nobody wants them anymore. Because if you just purely mine for Bitcoin, they will not generate enough Bitcoin for the day of the sats you get back every day. But we as homeowners that anyway would have spent the electricity. So in my system, if I just heat the water heater with the Bitcoin mining rig, I pay the exact same amount of electricity. There's no change in my electrical rate. The difference is I get Bitcoin back every single day. So I can take a 5-year-old miner, put this in my system, and I can still make free sats. It's not going to be as many sats if I would use the newest model, but the newest model is also 10 times more expensive. And so what I believe is these house systems or these residential areas are actually going to be the market for the older miner generations to soak them up like a sponge, because they are super cheap. Like even today, miners are actually very, very cheap compared to the bull run when we had 2 years ago. Like the miners that I use, you paid up to $15,000 for one device. I just bought some for $800.
Wow.
So the price massively dropped because A, of course, we're not in a bull run anymore, but also there's newer models that came out. And the newer models, yes, they're still $5,000. So they're still 5-6 times more expensive, but they don't have 5 or 6 times more hash rate. They maybe have 50% more, or maybe 100% max. So it's not linear to the hash they generate to the price. So the older ones that nobody wants anymore, they're quite cheap. And we as miners or residentials, we can use them, we can install them. And so we can give these systems a second or a third life even to use them. And that's where I see this whole going. So that the big miners, they're going to always buy the newest models. They're going to then sell them to the market, and we're going to install them into people's houses and generate sats. And of course, also secure the Bitcoin network through that in a very decentralized way, because that's another risk is as we're having this consolidation and all these big miners, that's also a massive risk for Bitcoin itself. And I believe, as we always say that like, not your key, not your coin, not your key, not your coin. So you need to store the Bitcoin yourself. You should also run your own node, but actually you should also mine at home. Because that's really the whole way. Then you're properly using and contributing back to the Bitcoin network when you run your own node and you're on your miners.
I absolutely love this topic. And I think that I think you're very early in what is going to potentially be just a major change to how people operate their homes. And if people, I know there's going to be tons of people that listen to this that are going to want to talk to you and interact with you. What's the best way for them to do that? Just reach out to you via DM on Twitter, or how can they get in contact with you?
Yes, so there's two main ways. Mostly on Twitter, so you find me under the name Schnitzel, like the German dish. My DMs are open. Reach out if you have specific questions, if you want to talk. I'm happy to help. But I actually started a little company with a friend of mine. We call it Nakamoto Heating Solutions.
I love it.
You can find it on nakamotoheating.com. And we do have a forum there for people to actually fill out that are interested in building such a system. Now, I do want to say is that we're very, very early. We don't have these systems built yet. There's not a warehouse of 1,000 units that I can ship out, and I have plumbers or installers that in every major city. Like, we have none of it. But we are at the point that I have now built my own system. So we are now at iteration 3 of my own system. I ripped it out twice and rebuilt it completely. So I feel very comfortable. I've went to the major issues. We had now a summer and a winter, and I can prove that it works. So plus, I've also already helped other people build their own systems at home. So if there is out there people that know about plumbing, know about electrical systems, this is totally possible. I actually have a complete parts list of every single piece that I use. I have schemas of my system. I have videos that explains how to connect all of it. We try to do everything as open source as possible because Bitcoin is open source, the whole community is open source. So the knowledge behind of this, I really believe that knowledge should be free. And so that is completely open source. So if you're a person that knows around this, you can totally build this. And I'm happy to help all along the process. We have done this now twice already. So I have a friend of mine, he heats a pool in his backyard. It's like a 30,000 gallon pool. It's a massive thing. And he's the only one that runs it all winter long that is warm. And so he's now the best. All the kids from all the neighbors, they always come over because he's the only one that has a 90-degree pool in winter, heated through miners again. I have other people.
How many rigs? How many rigs on that?
It's just one S19.
Oh my God.
It's 4,000 watts. It's a lot of electricity. It's a lot of heat that goes in it. And he closes it during the night. Like it has a little like rollover cover. And then it keeps it at 90 degrees. No problem at all.
That's unreal.
So if there's people out there that want to build this, it's all there. Like I learned everything myself. Like I said, I'm not from the US. I've never went to and I'm a software engineer. Like everything that I know, I've learned myself through YouTube. I always say, people ask me about like, why do you know all these things? I was like, I don't know anything. I just have a YouTube account and a screwdriver and no fear. It's possible. But of course, and like you say, there is millions of people out there that just want this installed. And that's what we're working on now, is to actually find solutions or build systems, kids also teach